Everybody loved my Tesseract style dice that I did last time, and it got me thinking, you know what? Maybe Thanos was right. Maybe I should get the other 5 sets made and make them all perfectly balanced, as all things should be. So in my last video, I showed you how to make these blue gemstone style sharp edge dice. If you haven't checked that one out, I totally recommend that you do it, but if not, here's the quick and dirty. You make some molds out of silicone, you pour it over some existing dice, and bam, you've got a mold to pour resin into. So definitely check that one out, but let's go ahead and get started with this one. This time I'm going to be using Resin Obsession's resin. Why? Because they sent me a bunch of it for free to try out. Now I prepped my molds by putting some painter's tape around it and pinching off the sides so that it's really tight, but this one is a 2-to-1 part resin. Instead of the last one, which was Art and Glow, which is a 1-to-1 resin mix, this one's 2-to-1. So you can see here I'm putting way too much. It turns out 37.5 milliliters is exactly what you need to fill up your molds. I ended up doing like 70 here, but for trial and error, 37.5, 25 of the thick stuff, 12.5 of the thin hardener is what you need. Now for these, I use food dye. It's water-based, you're not supposed to use it, but man, it's just worked out really well for me. I get a beautiful translucent color that I can't get elsewhere. I also put this silver glitter in with mine, and I put 6 drops of that. Be careful how much you're putting of this liquid stuff into either one, or else you're gonna have some problems. Now I fill up a few pipettes and just start totally loading up my molds with all of my glittery resin, and once I'm done with that, you could stop there, or what I like to do, because I have one, is use a pressure pot. It's what gets me that super glass style look with absolutely no bubbles inside of my resin. So I have one, I'm gonna use it because that's how I got these gemstone style dice. I recommend doing this if you want this super clear dice. If not, yours will just have bubbles in it, but that's okay too. So I fill it up with air and I set the pressure to around 30 to 40 psi. Any higher than that really isn't going to do us any good, and it doesn't remove bubbles, but it makes them super microscopic. Bam, there's our first set done. We now have the time stone complete out of the infinity stones. Thanos, I am coming for you in this world record speed for getting my infinity dice. Yours took way too long. Now let's start mixing up the second set. This one I mix out of the red or the ruby ones, creating the Aether. The reality stone is a bit darker of a red, so I actually use 3 drops of that food coloring and only 5 drops of this alcohol ink glitter stuff to try and balance out the liquid that's going to be in there. I don't want my dice to not cure and be too runny, so I had to compensate in some way, shape, or form. Now this was all taking too long, so in the meantime I made this little jig here so that I can fit more dice sets into my pressure pot at once. If people are interested in how I made this, I'm more than happy to make a video on it because it's super useful. Now I can get 3 times the normal amount of dice that I could in my pressure pot because I've got 3 layers to stack it on in here. So this fits beautifully in here, and I just slide it right in and everything else works the exact same. You put the pressure pot on, you go ahead and tighten the lid, and then all you have to do is fill it back up with air. Again, we're looking for 30 to 40 psi, and boom, we've got our reality set. And this one is gorgeous. It looks like fire looking right inside that D4. Now that I control space, reality, and time, let's move on to the next set. Now, I could lie to you and tell you I intended to make the Soulstone set, but I use this yellow dye here, and it turns out a little goes a long way of yellow. Too much of the yellow becomes orange, so 2 drops of yellow is enough to make something orange. We'll use 1 drop later when we go to the other stone, but for now, we're doing 2 drops and we're making orange, and we're just gonna roll with it. You can see there it became a lot more dark of an orange than I was really expecting. I thought yellow dye means yellow, but that's very wrong, and that's okay. We will learn to deal with this. But since I made the Soulstone, which looks awesome, I'm really happy with it, I'm gonna ask my wife how she thinks it looks. Oh shoot, I did have to sacrifice somebody to make that. But that's okay, let's move on to the next one. Now that my wife's not around to complain about me using her gel food dye, I'm gonna take this violet color and make the Power Stone. And again, a little bit goes a long way with this. It gives me the same transparency as the liquid food dye, so if you've got the gel, go for it. It works out just fine. We're using the same process as we did it with the other. We're going to use the pressure pot and everything, and boom! Now we have the power stone, and we can finally move on to the last stone, which is the mind stone. And I think Vision's going to have to give up that formula since we already know it, and it's just 1 drop so that we don't turn it orange and we keep it yellow like the mind stone is supposed to look. Everything else is the same, and bam, this is the final stone. We now have all 6 infinity stones, and that means the universe can be whatever I wanted to make it. It was inevitable that this would happen, and I'll stop with all the Avengers quotes. I'm really happy with how these things turned out. It is just a spectacular set. I have yet to ink any of them. I will be doing a polishing video where I'll take one or all of these and polish them down and ink them. Whoever had the top comment in the last video gets to decide what color I'm inking the blue kind of tesseract style gemstone set. But man, I really don't have any complaints about any of these. I think they're all spectacular in some different way and could all be used by one different type of character in a D&D game or any other board game, or especially if you do some sort of space or superhero themed game. I definitely have ideas of how to throw these gemstones secretly into a D&D campaign and just not tell my players that they are actually searching for the Infinity Stones. Just say they're fighting for some sort of stones of immense power, and if you get all 6, something amazing will happen, and we'll just see if they catch on their own. Thank you to everybody who suggested doing the Infinity Stone set. It was such a phenomenal idea, and holy crap, my last video has absolutely blown up. I had 3,000-ish subscribers. I wanted this video to come out for a 5,000 sub special, but we blew past that in the matter of a week. So thank you everybody again. I really appreciate you coming and checking out the channel, and hopefully you like what you see and maybe want to see some more in the future. So subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below some other builds you might want to see me check out in the future, and I will add them to my to-do list and make sure that I try and get to them at some point. Thank you for watching everybody. You've made me have an amazingly happy week, and I hope you have one as well. Now I wonder if I snap my fingers if Matt Mercer will say I made some nice dice.